you. Good evening, everyone. We will be in the platform for a few seconds until all our viewers come on board. Okay, so good evening and a warm welcome back to another session in the series of Meeting an Expert. And as Asia Pacific Institute of Information Technology, known as APIT Sri Lanka, we are honored today to host this session with another VIP who will be expressing a lot of important information to us today, I'm sure. So to start with, I would like to warmly welcome all our students who are in the platform today. And of course, all the members who are joining us from partner universities and all the foreign delegates and diplomats who are joining us from all over the world. And of course, not to forget all our distinguished guests who are in the platform as well. So to start with, let me warmly welcome and invite Mr. Bandula Egudage, Chairman of APIT Sri Lanka, share his expressions and wishes. Chairman, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kaushali. First of all, very big thank you, Professor Suranjith Seneviratne, for being with us. It's a great privilege to welcome you for this important webinar. On behalf of our CEO, Mr. Roshan Egudage, and also the board of directors, the lecturers, and the student population, very warmly, very warmly welcome you here for this evening. Professor, I mean, you are aware that APIT is known for the quality education, but what we want to do is basically, we want to give something extra. Whoever who is passed out from APIT, he has the academic excellence. I'm sure that he will end up as the right graduate, but more than that, we want them to be a good person for the society, and therefore they want to do some extracurricular activities. With the great initiative of Dr. Rohantha Tukorala, we are bringing personalities like you for the betterment of our student population, for them to take the direct interaction with you, and to do the right experience for our student population. So it's a great honor once again. APIT believes you, and I'm sure your intention is also to give something to the society. So you and I are in the same path. So I'm sure people will get the maximum out of you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much for your important time here. Take care. Thank you very much. All the best. And over to you, Dr. Rohantha and Kaushali.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and also the Chairman of the Industrial Association of Sri Lanka, Vice President of Nestle. And we got such an eminent human being today who is going to tell us all about this never-ending pandemic. All I know is that almost 40 airports are shut, and things are again looking a little bit tough. Professor Suranjith Seneviratne is a well-known personality in Sri Lanka, currently at the Institute of Humanity and Transportation, Royal Free Hospital, and the University of College London, Health Services Laboratories, London, UK. Completed his basic medical degree at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, with the first-class honors, 8 distinctions, and 10 gold medals, and was placed first in his year. He completed his MD in internal medicine and trained in clinical immunology and allergy at the John Redcliffe Hospital, Oxford. He completed Doctor of Philosophy in the molecular medicine at Witherall Institute, Molecular Medicine, University of Oxford, at the Commonwealth, and also as a Commonwealth Scholar. So far, he has authored 256 journal publications, published journals such as Nature Science, Nature Medicine, Blood, American Journal of Medical Genetics, American Journal of Human Genetics, Journal of Experimental Medicine, and Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology. Professor Seneviratne is an international expert in immunodeficiency, autoimmune, allergic, mast cell disorders, and immunogenetics. He is the director of the Center for Mast Cell Disorders and president of the UK Sri Lanka Immunology Foundation, an organization that has contributed to immunology and allergy of education in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, amazing human being, a fantastic personality and a proud product of Sri Lanka, exported to the UK, but now we are going to import him back, Professor Suranjith Seneviratne.
Okay. Thank you, Rohantha. Thank you very much for the kind words. I'll put on the video. I'll just share my screen and then put it on. What's happening here? Can you see that? What's sorry. Yeah. So I'll just share my screen and I'll put the video. Thank you very much. Yeah, for the to press that and just to okay. Got the technical matter out of the way. Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, Rohantha, for the kind invitation to speak to the students and the others during this time about another variant. And thanks a lot for the introduction. Thanks to Kaushalya, Bandhu, Mr. Egodage, and Rohantha for all the help. And let me give you a sort of a quick run update on this new variant so that questions can then be taken from that point onwards. I just want to give a small update on the sort of what is known so far. It has just been reported very recently, and we have quite a few unknowns at the moment. So a few weeks ago, the WHO came and said that there were these variants of concern. Now we are dealing with a virus, SARS-CoV-2, and the disease is COVID. Some people use it interchangeably, but we have to remember SARS-CoV-2 is the virus and the disease is COVID. So SARS-CoV-2, you had the Wuhan strain, and then it changed. Once when the virus multiplies, changes can occur, and some changes are clinically important. I'll tell you when is it clinically important. So there were some quite clinically important strains that was alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And those that were not all that clinically significant, those were the variants of interest. And those were many that were listed there together with mu and lambda. So we knew that alpha, beta, gamma, delta as variants of concern and the others as variants of interest, and some were not even given a label. And how did we decide this? How do scientists decide it? 5 things. Does it affect spread when the virus changes? Does it affect the spread of the virus? Does it affect the severity of the disease? Is it mild disease or severe? Does it affect the testing? Does it affect the therapeutic aid, the drugs we use? And does it affect vaccination? So those are the common questions anyone would be asking. Is the vaccine effective? Is it more severe disease? Is it spreading faster? Is it affecting our testing? Is it affecting the medicines we use? So based on that, we can say, okay, is this a significant variant or is it not such an important variant? We have written, like many others around the world, have written a lot about this, describe these. You can get this anytime, you can get these links and read this article if you want to get information about these different variants. So alpha, beta, gamma, delta, etc., mu, lambda, we have written some basic articles on this. And then comes this new variant. And then adding to the confusion is they've named it and people are still uncertain how to pronounce the name. Some say Omicron, some say Omicron, some say different pronunciation going. Most of the people say Omicron and it's SARS-CoV-2 variant. So Omicron, or some pronounce in different ways. Again, very recently we wrote an article about what do we know so far about the Omicron variant. And at that day, this was about, I think 4 days ago, there was a certain amount known, and then we know a bit more at the present day. So this is the 5th variant of concern. It was directly upgraded to variant of concern rather than a variant of interest by the WHO. It was variant of concern. That is the 5th variant of concern. Now, if you look at the virus, you have the spike protein. And changes can happen in the gene that codes the protein. So the Wuhan strain you had, and then changes in the genes occurred, and the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, etc. occurred. Now, the thing that happened was that there were so many mutations in this variant, 50 gene mutations in total, 32 in the spike protein gene. Now, that's a lot. 10 in the receptor binding domain. That is, receptor binding domain is the area of the spike that the virus used to bind the cell and to enter the cell, because the virus has to enter the cell, multiply in the cell, and then spread from cell to cell. So 10 mutations, while in comparison, Delta, the one that is most widespread around the world at the moment, had 2 changes. So that made scientists, clinicians, etc., politicians sit up and say, what are we dealing with? And it is a very different virus to what was originally identified in Wuhan. Some mutations of the 50 have been seen in other variants, and we know from those studies that they were associated with increased transmissibility, that is, can transmit very fast very rapidly from one person to another, and from one region to another, and they may be associated with vaccines not working properly. So this is a schematic again of the different variants that are found in the different components: the spike 32, the nucleocapsid protein gene, and there's a membrane protein, a missing part there. So this is an important finding. Now the next important thing is, what is the clinical impression? So people are taking it seriously. There's an interesting perspective that is coming in from a German scientist, where they are saying, okay, there are these changes, it is making the virus more transmissible, but as a result, is it making it go towards the transmission, but less severe? So people are getting milder. That would be great, because then it will spread around the world and people will get only mild disease. And that would be important. The virus is sort of being able to transfer from person to person, but may not be so serious. I mean, that is an important thing to be considered and being discussed at the moment. And we should watch that. So these are the sort of where the structural diagrams of where the mutations are. In the Delta, you can see the red dots, and you can see in Omicron, the number of red dots all sort of bunched together, and especially in the receptor binding domain, which is the important part where the virus interacts with our body cell. Now, just because numbers alone is not sufficient. I mean, just because you have a lot of mutations alone, it doesn't per se say that it's going to be dangerous. The combination of mutations and the specific mutation that there are, the individual mutation, the specific mutation, the combination. So if those are all adding up together, then it can bind strongly to the receptor on the cell. And when it binds strong to the receptor, it can enter the cell very much easier, and then keep on spreading from cell to cell, and then from person to person, and increase transmissibility. So the take-home message there is, the number of mutations per se is not the ultimate word, the last word. It's actual change and the combination of changes. Some mutations make the virus more easily spread, transmissible. Some mutations make the virus able to escape from immune responses after an infection or after vaccination. For example, the Delta variant and the Beta variant. The Beta variant was again first identified in South Africa. It was had a greater role of escaping vaccine responses. And that was why the AstraZeneca vaccine did not really work well in South Africa. And that was frightening people, because that was a bit of a tricky mutation from the vaccine response. However, it was not all that transmissible. And then from a lucky stroke, Delta came along, was very transmissible, but the vaccines were effective. So that's the reason why people are wondering whether, and we will know this answer in a week or 2 weeks, because my talk will be so different in a week or 2 weeks, because we would know those answers. It's more transmissible, we know that. It's spreading around the world. We know that from about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, this virus had been around, the variant. But is it causing more severe disease or is it mild disease? Now, the data coming out from South Africa is a little bit problematic, because initially the doctor was saying, a lot of people were mild disease, etc. I'll tell you the manifestation. But then at the same talk, they were saying this affecting mainly young people. We know that South Africa, it's only 6% over the age of 60 years. So it was the younger population, mainly affecting the young people. And those young people may have not got vaccinated, etc. So that may be a reason why they were getting affected. But the important thing to remember is that down the line in that same talk, they were saying an increased number of young people are getting admitted to hospital. So if you have mild disease, you are not expected to get into hospital. I mean, that was the sort of tricky issue that was coming there with some of the statements. So we would wait in about 3-4 days, or definitely by the next week, we will know, is this causing more severe disease, especially in the older population. Certain countries have a much older population, especially in the non-vaccinated, especially in the double vaccinated and triple vaccinated, that is, who has got the booster. So when we don't know things, countries have taken an early step forward to be able to get ahead of the game, because if you take some steps and it finds that the virus is not really dangerous, I mean, still you have taken those steps, but you would have prevented a sort of a catastrophe. While by taking the steps that they're taking, if it turns out to be quite dangerous, especially in the older population, at least they've taken some steps to mitigate it, not to prevent. You can't prevent this virus. It will enter Sri Lanka. It will enter different countries. I mean, there is no question about that, because it has entered a whole range of countries. America, they will find it. I don't know if they've already found it, but that will happen. But the important thing is, can we increase the immunity of the population with boosters, etc.? And that is why certain things have changed with regards to boosters. The third vaccine given to healthy people. So this was, I think, from yesterday, 20-odd countries around the world have detected patient with the Omicron variant, and around the world, you can say Canada, Australia, South Africa, Botswana, etc., and the number of countries in Europe. It will move around because Japan has got, and it will come into Asia. That is, we know that. There have been many, many flights from South Africa to Europe and UK over the last sort of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they are trying to trace, but I mean, it's a daunting task, because there have been so many, three major flights, British Airways and Virgin. There would have, many people have come across from the population. And it was first identified in South Africa, but we don't know where it originated. Some people say Botswana, but we don't. Before that, you have it in Netherlands also. There are some older samples that are positive, about 3-week sample. So this was the pattern of infections in South Africa. Beta, then alpha, then you had the Delta come in, and in many cases it had reduced. Number of cases in South Africa reduced. Things are opening up, etc. And now Omicron has come in, and we don't know what the trajectory of it. Omicron, the number of cases appear to be increasing very much more rapidly than alpha or beta, beta or delta. And this is quite a rapid, and that's why people are taking note of it. It's another schematic to show the rate at which it is increasing. And that is why several countries have moved very fast to take some action, because the idea is, if you don't take any action, you can look back and wonder why you didn't take that action. But if you take some action, even if it turns out not to be, then it's not, there'll be a hit on the economy, definitely. But from a health perspective, you can be saving a lot of lives. What are the symptoms? From the South African data, it appears that the symptoms are a little bit different to the Delta variant, where shortness of breath, etc., taste, loss of taste and smell not coming through. Some of the manifestations are shown there, including temperature, tiredness, muscle aches, dry cough, etc., and scratchy throat and headache. But we'll get a better picture in a week's time, and this schematic would be changed once we get a better picture. So what has the world gone to do? travel bans have come, restrictions have come, masks wearing has been put into public transport and into indoor sort of shopping centers, etc. In the UK, they brought it back again. At one time, it was not, very recent, it was not there. They brought it back. Certain schools, children have been told they have to wear masks, etc. And there has been preemptive travel restriction put in. There's been a lot of discussion about that, and I think we'll be discussing that aspect with Dr. Rohantha. The discussion is South Africa found it, and they feel that they have been disadvantaged by it because they released the data, and then immediately people started pointing and said, okay, we should not do anything with South Africa, we should restrict anybody coming from there. So that could have a bad effect, because people would be finding mutations or variants and then not reporting it because of the fact that it can affect that country and just wipe the economy of the country to a very low level. So that is an important consideration we have to take in going in the future. So this is the issue, the airport, the problems, people are trying to get back, spreading. America has put travel bans, South Africa is complaining vociferously, including at the UN. So there is a global perspective here, political perspective. It is not only a health perspective, that is where business, political, social, and medical perspectives interact, and why people have to speak to each other, because it's not only medicine, it is an important social aspect also. So these were the sort of the restriction that were put in England and Scotland and Wales. Face masks, close contact, people had to isolate for 10 days. People who were traveling, there were certain red list countries, because the red list was removed in the UK. Now it has come back again to certain countries. PCR testing has to be done 2 days, and then people have to be in isolation, but it will be renewed. I mean, I don't want to go into far too much detail, but this will be looked at and the advice will be renewed. COVID boosters, which again, this was an article that came very recently, because a lot of booster vaccines have been given in Sri Lanka, and this was a update of booster vaccination across the world. And I think it came about 4 or 5 days ago, but already it's up, it needs to be updated, because about 2 days ago, the period between the second dose and the third dose has been reduced from 6 months. Now it has come to 3 months. And the age, it was first 50, everyone over the age of 50 were getting boosted. Then it became 40. And then now it has become everyone over the age of 18 to be given a booster vaccine, at least just 3 or 3 months after the second dose. So that is a change that has come, because if you can increase the level of antibodies and other immune responses, then at least there will be some cross protection against Omicron if it turns out to be a really problematic virus or variant. So the companies have come in on board, the vaccine companies. Can they tweak the vaccine? It takes some time. Pfizer said in 100 days they can get a variant vaccine if that is needed. They're testing the vaccine, the present vaccine, to see if it's effective. And that would be data that will come out in the next week or two. The Moderna yesterday brought a more sort of a negative outlook, saying that they will do it, but it can take up to 2022. They didn't say early or what, or mid 2022. Immediately had a knock-on effect on the stock markets around the world, because if that happens, then, and this Omicron turns out to be a bit of nasty variant, that can have an impact. So that was a bit of a negative sentiment from one of the vaccine manufacturers, but the other manufacturers have said that they can tweak their vaccines and bring out a new vaccine quite rapidly in about 100 days if that was needed. But they're also looking at the present vaccine, because the present vaccine may be sufficient, and we may find a situation that the virus is milder from a symptom perspective, and they are effective against the vaccine. So that would be the best situation to be. But I think steps have been put in place just to buy some time, so that we'll get those answers as we go ahead in the next few days. Thank you very much. That's a quick update on the new sort of variant, so that we can take it from there.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you for that quick update, and really appreciate for you coming on board in such short time to discuss this very important topic. So do you think that Sri Lanka is ready, Professor, to this challenge? Because we are at about, I think 72% of the population has got one vaccination, while the double vaccination is about 62%. So do you feel we are ready?
Rohantha, I think all countries are putting a program of work ahead to ensure that everyone is going to be ready. And I think Sri Lanka is no different from any other place, that they will put in some, or already are put in some points to make us ready. We have to remember that vaccination is only one aspect of it. We have to, I mean, this is a problem, and this question has been asked. Certain countries are giving people 3 vaccines, etc., while other countries have not been vaccinated sufficiently. South Africa, less than 50% have been vaccinated. That's not good. Variants will develop. So Sri Lanka, great. We have proceeded for, we have got the vaccines. We have vaccinated up. Population numbers are 70 and 60, as you mentioned, first and second vaccination, and the process is proceeding. The vaccine hesitancy would be less in a place like Sri Lanka as opposed to certain Western countries. So that is a positive thing. Booster doses are coming, and they will have to expand it going forward. The important thing to remember is vaccination is one aspect of it. And it should be vaccination hand in hand with 3 others. Public health measures, which includes wearing masks, social distancing, proper hygienic measures that are needed for the control of this virus, because it's a respiratory virus. Thirdly, you have antiviral agents, oral antiviral agents, which are being used in certain countries in certain groups of patients, not in everybody, but certain groups of patients, once they're positive. And the fourth one, monoclonal antibodies, again in certain groups of patients who are not responding properly to the vaccine. So those 4 coming together, if you try to put all your eggs only in vaccination basket, that is not going to succeed. So the country will be having a process now of vaccines going hand in hand with the public health measures, with getting the antiviral agent, oral antiviral agent, in select a group. It's not, antiviral agents giving it like Smarties to everybody who walks on the road, not that. It's selected people in the correct context. It should not be like how steroids were being doled out when everybody got positive PCR, everybody was just given steroids and antibiotics. That is absolutely wrong. That should not happen. It should be the correct guidelines being followed. The doctors will put the guidelines that should be followed by people, and not go to pharmacies and get these drugs, etc. And public health measures together with vaccines. So I think it's a double-pronged thing. And when I say public health measures, it is a lot of things. It encompasses a lot of things that have to go hand in hand, looking into the perspective of the economy, etc. You cannot take this in isolation. And that's why people have to come around the table, sit down, decide what is best for the country, rather than trying to deal with some, abstruse or theoretical aspect, because what is needed for the countries is what should be put in place and rolled out very rapidly without too much of delay.
Professor, yesterday, India was very interesting. I mean, I'm actually expected to fly out tomorrow, but I don't know what things will hold, because most of the airports have put their own clampdown of it. And, some are looking at even, random PCR tests of everybody, not only the 60 countries which are high risk. Some have said that even if it's negative, you need to take 7 days quarantine. But I suppose all that has been done by India, because their GDP yesterday came out at 8.4% growth after a minus 21.7 last year. So as you very rightly said, India is putting all its curbs to make sure that the economy is not getting hit. My question is that if Sri Lanka is also, wanting to do that similar kind of stance, because we are opening ourselves to all the tourists coming in, because Sri Lanka's exchange rate is under attack. I mean, we are in a catch-22 situation. So my question is air travel, curtailing air travel a way out? Because even WHO has said that over 60 years, better avoid travel. So obviously there is a stance saying that one way to reduce the spread would be to stop air travel. So in this background, do you think that Sri Lanka will also have to maybe curtail its entry of travel tourists?
I think you have raised a lot of important points in the statements you made, Ruhanta, and I think very important points that people around the world are thinking about, right? And it varies from region to region. Certain countries can take a hit on their economy. Certain countries just cannot, because if they default, if they have big issues with their economy, more people are going to die of hunger and other aspects because we are not only dealing with COVID-19, we are dealing with people, who have other diseases, who have other needs, sort of health needs and general living needs. So what happens with air travel is, I mean, Britain was criticized a lot when it came to Delta because they moved very, very slow when it came to Delta. When it first exploded in India, they just moved very slow and there was a lot of criticism. So this time they just moved on the other direction of putting curves very slow. Now we know that air travel will hold back or delay things, but it won't eliminate it. I mean, that can't happen. How long can you stop air travel, right? It has already spread to several countries. I mean, it could have come to Sri Lanka. We are just not detected. It could have come to India. We were not detected it. So air travel, it's a discussion that is being put around the table. There's no one right answer, and saying, the air travel, there have been 5 papers, academic papers saying it has not made a big change. Another 5 will say, no, it has made a change. But I think they took the pragmatic view of, shall we restrict at least till we get more answers? That is the thing. Now, when it comes to India, we have to remember, I think in the article I wrote on the boosters, you will see that India is one country, massive country, that has not started a booster program. They have not started a booster program. They're still on the first, because the thing is they have to prioritize and get their first 2 doses to the people, and at least first dose and the first 2 doses. So they have not started a booster. They have been dragging their feet on that, although there have been calls for that because of the population. So they don't have that level of booster that is there. They have used AstraZeneca vaccine. They have used the Bharat vaccine. Both were less sort of immunogenic than the Pfizer vaccine. So they're in a different category. So they have to take they might have to take extra steps if by chance this variant starts becoming a bit tricky. And if that is so, then Sri Lanka is just next to India. We have to also watch that situation very carefully. And that was what happened when India was blowing up with Delta, right? I think Sri Lanka was a bit behind the curve when dealing with it, because during the April holidays, I mean March, Delta was rising in India and coming to focus in India, not right, but coming to focus. And then by the time we took some steps, people had traveled during Sinhala New Year, etc., and there was a lot of Sinhala and Tamil New Year. So there was a lot of spread in that situation. So I think we have to, I'll have a better answer in a week's time with regards to that, because then we'll know what is the nature of this variant, because we may turn, like the German sort of possible health minister was saying, the next health minister was saying, that, this might be a variant like a sort of early Christmas gift to us. It is transmissible, but not severe. And then everybody will look back and say, okay, we didn't have to put this there. But if it turns out to be like what some people are saying, so many mutations, it can be quite dangerous. Then I think that the airport closure, at least by certain countries where there's a lot of traffic from the main area, would help to hold it a little bit. It's not going to prevent it completely. It will hold it a bit till we get the answer. Why over 60 travel has been sort of recommended? Because we know severe disease occur in this over 60, right? And the thing is that certain places over 60s have been given the booster, but certain other places they have not. Still with the booster, we know the immune response will definitely not be, or most likely would not be as good as a normal, healthy 25 or 30-year-old getting a booster. So that answer has to be sort of evaluated again with regards to findings that are coming in the next few days.
Professor, why is it that some airports in India last night, I think Delhi, is looking at gene sequencing? Is it because the normal PCR doesn't pick up this particular variant?
No, there is something called there's a change that occurs, right? In the PCR, there's a change that occurs, and with that you can suspect the presence of the Omicron mutation. But then if you really want to finally confirm it, you can suspect it and think that this can be the Omicron, the variant that is coming. But then what happens is that is why countries like South Africa, the UK, and other countries that do a lot of gene sequencing are detecting this variant, and they say it's not fair on those countries because they detect a variant, but it has originated somewhere else, and then it's called, the UK variant or the South African variant. So the gene sequencing is needed to be able to finally say, this is the Omicron or Delta, etc. You'll have to tell that, and then they'll be collecting sample. But it takes some time, right? So they do the standard PCR, you can suspect it, and then go ahead and do gene sequencing on the sample. That's what happens in UK. Quite a lot of gene sequencing is occurring.
Because I know I have to let you go at 7:17 because
okay. Yes, absolutely.
You are getting honorary membership from Rotary. Very, very proud being a Rotarian. But Professor, in the field of medical, in business, what we do is we do scenario planning. We look at different scenarios and say, okay, if this happens, we have already thought through different options. So have you all thought through as to how this pandemic may go, and whether there are we to see so many other scenarios that you all have thought through? How does it work, Professor?
Absolutely. Yes, we do think of people, scientists around the world are thinking of scenarios. I mean, like even in a hospital, you think of scenario planning, etc. But the problem that is happening is that there's the SARS-CoV-2 is pushing out so many curveballs across, right? I mean, at quite quick in sort of time period, a very quick sort of short interval. And you plan for one thing, and then suddenly something else comes up, and then you have to change plans and move. I mean, there is the flexibility, but only thing when you deal with health matters, right, it is a bit more, you have this gray area. It takes time to get the answer. Still, we know, when they had the financial crisis, all the models were there, all the financial gurus and experts had used their model. But when a matter came out of the blue, as you all say, the black swan sort of process came out, those models all just failed, right? And that is the issue. No one thought that we'll get a virus with about 50 mutations, gene mutations. How do we deal with it? And that is why it takes about 2 weeks. And that is the reason why countries are buying some time, right? By putting 4 things in place. Vaccination. If you're not vaccinated, the take-home message is please go and get vaccinated. Don't look on and wait. Natural immunity will help a little, but there are so many people. I mean, in America, 60 million people have not got even one vaccine, right? 60 million people. There are people who say they got COVID and therefore they don't want to get vaccine. That's one group, but there is 60 million people who have not got even a single dose of vaccine. In Sri Lanka, it will be lower because we generally accept vaccination. So in addition to vaccination, that is one strand. Go without them. Definitely there's scenario planning, but the virus is pushing out so many curveballs in the pathway of science and humanity.
So do you feel that children with about 12 years will also have to get vaccinated? I mean, is that, how does that
Yes,
work?
it is happening at the moment. So 12 to 15, one vaccine is being given, and 16 and 17, you get 2 doses of vaccine. So they just changed the regulation, and 12 to 15 also would be getting 2 doses of the vaccine, right? They will be getting, they got 1 dose of the vaccine initially, but now they will be getting at a later stage, they will getting 2 doses of vaccine. And that is important because they are going to school. I know in the UK at least, they're going to school. They are told to wear masks. They're going to school. They're not closing down school because that aspect is going forward at the present time. So therefore, vaccination is a process that is developing. They are getting, studies have been done between 5 and 11 years. And that is another group that they'll be considering rolling out vaccination across the world in when it becomes a sort of thing to be done at that specific. So it's going in certain ages. We know that the older population, the one that gets more severe disease, so therefore they have to get vaccinated. They have to get the 3rd dose. Immune deficiency should get 3 doses as a primary course and a 4th dose as their booster. So that's an important take-home message again. For immune deficiency, it's 3 doses. For general, for healthy people, it's 2 doses. That's a primary course. And then for immune deficiency, go with the 4th dose, at least 3 months after 3rd dose. And for people who are otherwise healthy, you go for the 3rd dose, 3 months after the 2nd dose. But children, yes.
Okay. Professor, interesting, because in Mumbai, of course, they have closed down all the schools until the 15th. So, I mean, I suppose you all have to be really abreast with the changes in the world, because I mean every minute it's changing as at now. I mean, how do you keep a track with such changes? I mean, we see changes on a monthly basis in the marketplace, you know, sometimes actually once in 3 months, but here it's changing like every minute. So how is there some platform that you all go to study or and keep abreast, or how does it go?
I think it's a combination of, because I mean, you have lots of sort of within the hospital, within the region, between countries, scientists speaking at meetings, etc., and updating each other. Then there is news coming from the publications that come, a journal publication. We are expected to be, anyone working in the field is expected to, you know, always be reading that and updating people, synthesizing. I think that's what we have been encouraged, synthesize the data, simplify it and put it across to people so that they can understand, so that you don't have only the people producing sort of data that is not really correct being in circulation, while, you know, the real what has been found with science is also put out so that people would understand what is going on. So I think that's a multiple source. I mean, personally, I would say from the hospital, from the region, from the country, we have data with several Zoom meetings, etc., or mainly Zoom meeting, and then reading journals that you keep updating, and your own research findings that you analyze and publish.
Professor, last question, Professor. I know you have to run in 2 minutes. So what is your advice to a young MBA graduate, you know, thought that the pandemic is over, you know, getting back to life, you know, getting back to studies, and now again, you're with another shock has attacked you. I mean, what's your advice to a youngster being such an outstanding academic plus professional, and now, of course, very eminent thought leader we see and hear you quite often in the Sri Lankan press? Well, what's your advice to a youngster, Professor?
I think resilience, perseverance, persistence will pay off, right? So these things in business, in science, in sports, in any field of that you're in, those hurdles will come up. And if you take the easiest route and say hurdles are coming up, I'm going to just sit at home and do nothing, I think that is not going to sort the problem in the world. So hurdles will come in any field. You can be the most sort of in medicine, it can be business, etc. And the important thing is finding practical solutions that can be put in a timely manner and that are cost effective to sort out the problem. So things will come up. Sometimes your education will be delayed by 1 year. Sometimes you may not have that interaction. But if you persevere and persist in that and have a positive outlook always, rather than always being, this is not working, that is not working, some third thing is not working, 100 things are not working. The 101st thing will work, and be positive that the 101st thing will work, because that would get you going over the hurdle and past the hurdle and reaching your goal and what you want to achieve in life.
Thank you, Professor. I know I have to let you go because the other party is right now waiting and they're calling me.
Is that so? Okay.
Kaushali, can I hand over to you, and we will hear more from you, Professor. Please take care and please stay in touch, and sincerely
thank you very much.
I mean, I know the thoughts you shared are your personal thoughts, because the world is changing so fast, and I really appreciate for coming on board. Kaushali, over to you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Indeed,
Thank
such
you.
a erudite personality who is with us today. And Professor, sincerely, thank you so much, especially for giving us all that information that is needed at this moment, at this time, especially where a new variant is on the rise. So, and especially disseminating proper information for everyone's understanding. And wish you all the very best with your next event and achievement. And with that, we would like to end up the session for today, and we'll meet back again in another week's time. Until then, do take care and good night from Happy Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Kaushalya. Thank you, Rohantha.
Thank you, Professor.
Everyone.
All the best. Bye.